You know, the consensus is among many nations in the world that if Israel would just go away, we would have peace. And if the Palestinians were allowed to reclaim the land that they claim belongs to them and not to the Jews, that all would go well in the world and we would see a cease in terrorism and all the other problems that are going on around the world in regards to Islam. Well, that's not true. First of all, Israel is not going away. Israel plays a very important part in end time world events, according to biblical prophecy. Now, what am I talking about? Well, Israel is going to be building a third temple in the not too distant future. Now, we know that's going to happen because the Antichrist, who is going to appear in the world and claim to be Jesus Christ at some point in the future, is going to go into that temple and he's going to claim to be God himself, God incarnate. So Israel isn't going anywhere in the world. And the Bible backs that up. Despite the efforts of all the nations and the hostilities of the nations, Israel is going to survive. Now, how are they going to build that third temple on the Temple Mount where the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock currently exist that are extremely holy to Islam? Well, how they're going to build it is a strong man. The Antichrist is eventually going to appear, take over a world government, and he's going to sign a peace treaty with Israel for 7 years. Now, you can read that in the book of Daniel in the Old Testament, chapter 9, verse 27. And that peace treaty is going to mandate that Israel give up her sovereignty as an individual nation in the world in exchange for his protection, that he will protect Israel from her hostile neighbors, that anybody who tries to attack Israel is going to be dealt with very severely by the Antichrist. And in exchange for Israel's sovereignty, they're going to be able to build that third temple on the Temple Mount. Now, no other way could this possibly happen. If the Jews try to build that temple today, there would be a bloody, massive war would break out in that part of the world, and it'd be many, many casualties. Now, again, what does the Bible say? Well, the Apostle Paul, who wrote in his second letter to the church in Thessalonica nearly 2,000 years ago, said this in regards to the return of Jesus Christ. He mentioned that the temple would reappear. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, beginning at verse 4, he said, "He, the Antichrist, will oppose and will exalt himself over everything that is called God or is worshipped, so that he sets himself up in God's temple, proclaiming himself to be God." Jesus Christ, of course, mentioned that as well, too, in Matthew chapter 24 in the Gospel of Matthew, that the temple is going to be around. So Israel is not going anywhere as a nation in the world. Israel is going to stay put despite all the hostility, all the threats from the Iranians to drop nuclear bombs on Israel, all the hostility from Hamas and the rocket attacks. Israel's going to survive this, and Israel's going to stick around as a nation. In the end times, she's not going anywhere. And of course, Israel has to stick around because that's the nation that Jesus Christ is going to return to when he comes back to the world and establishes his millennial 1,000-year kingdom, when he's going to set foot on the Mount of Olives, and then the Jews are going to recognize who Christ really is, that he is their Messiah, who they crucified a long, long time ago. So Israel, again, is not going anywhere in the world. She's going to stay put. She has a very important prophetic role to play in these last days. And I think we, as Christians as well as Jews, need to pray for the peace of Jerusalem and Israel and to understand that it's very, very important that this nation is protected from her enemies and that the Jews come to the revelatory knowledge that Jesus Christ is indeed Israel's Messiah. Thank you again, and God bless.